Greetings to everyone, and yes, a very happy new year. We are into the year 2021, and right now we are getting ready for the third test between India and Australia, which will go ahead at Sydney. Although we had a brief scare, but the game is going on at Sydney, which makes Sachin very, very happy, obviously. And this video, remember, is powered to you by the Global Cricket School. And once again, we've got a very special guest. Remember, we at Knee Sports promised to bring to you someone who knows the venues where the matches have been played, and who better to have than Geoff Lawson, a former Australia fast bowler who's represented them in 46 test matches and 88, or rather, sorry, 79 one-day internationals. And also, let me tell you, he was coach of Pakistan, the Kochi Tuskers Kerala in the IPL, brings with him a lot of experience, knows the SCG in and out, and Sydney. So, gentlemen, thank you so much for joining me. Geoff, thank you so much.
No problem. Aapka sahe to you.
Badhiya. I guess you picked up a bit of Hindi during your stint here in the subcontinent.
Oh, just a Torah Hindi. Torah.
Thoda. That's so good to know. Sachin, you've known Geoff for years now. It's the game is back at Sydney. Your memories at Sydney, and yes, of course, memories with Geoff himself.
Where Geoff is sitting right now is his living room. I've spent many an afternoon falling asleep there, watching a Liverpool game late in the night, watching a Liverpool game. When I'm in Sydney, I stay at what's called the Lawson Palace in Coogee.
That is very true. I'm sitting a couple of metres from where Sachin spends most of his sleeping hours in Sydney. But fortunately, it's not very far from the SCG either.
Right.
Great memories there. One of my favorite pastimes when I'm in Sydney is to go and watch the University of New South Wales and Balmain, what is called Sydney Cricket Club, play great cricket. When I'm not at the SCG watching, or I'm looking at, I'm in all the lovely cafes in Coogee and Clovelly, enjoying some of the best coffee in the world there. Great memories, super place.
Absolutely. And Geoff, there was a scare in Sydney with regards to this test match, whether it will happen or not. But finally, the game is going ahead. From a cricket lover's point of view, as we all are, how big is it, or what a relief is it to have the test match back? Have this traditional New Year's test match back, although it is 3 or 4 days later.
Well, it's always great to have the test match on. I mean, we're very fortunate in these troubling and interesting days to have cricket on at all. And the fact that we've had 2 test matches already, Adelaide Oval and the Boxing Day test match, that was in big doubt up till about 3 weeks from that match, but they put that on, which was terrific. So it's very much a movable feast caused by the pandemic. But we are very lucky in Australia that we've got very, very few cases of it. We've had a minor outbreak in Sydney. I think there's been a total of 140 cases over the last 3 weeks. There's a couple every day, but just a couple sends warning shots across everybody's bows about how it can spread so quickly. So I think the Sydney test was always going to be on. The fact was whether we'd have crowds there, half crowd, full crowd, or no crowd at all. But I think the game was always going to be on. At the moment, I think they're deciding on a half-full stadium, which is very good. But that might even change in the next 2 or 3 days. The reports out of Sydney today were very few COVID cases, and that's always a very good sign if you want to go to be a part of a crowd at the SCG. So, yeah, the test match is on. How big the crowd will be, we're not too sure. Hopefully it'll be half full. We'll have about 20,000 in, which will be a great atmosphere. If we had 5 or 10,000, it would be a great atmosphere at Sydney. But it is the match we like to play after Boxing Day, after everybody's enjoyed the MCG. They come up to Sydney for the New Year's test match. And of course, this year with India in Australia, the series has 1-1. We've seen some terrific cricket. There's lots of doubts with both teams. It's a great matchup. So the cricket's been exciting and everybody's looking forward to it.
And let me get the fast bowler in you to answer this. How impressed are you by the fast bowling from both sides? Batsmen haven't had it easy. Australia have a world-class attack. India have had a world-class attack as well, in spite of the fact that they've lost a couple of bowlers due to injury. What does the fast bowler inside you say when you look at performances like these?
Well, yeah, I really enjoy watching, particularly the pink ball. I think I would have loved to play with a pink ball under lights at Adelaide. That might have given me a bit more chance against some of those West Indians batsmen back in the 1980s. But yeah, both sides have got absolutely world-class bowling lineups. Australia, of course, Cummins, Stark, Hazelwood. Lyons, their spinner, is also world-class. They've even got James Pattinson sitting on the sideline. And he's a pretty good guy to have your fourth up. So that is an absolute world-class. I think as good as anything Australia's put on the field way back to Lilly, Thompson and Walker, I reckon. That's how good they are. And India have got this depth in fast bowling. They'll be missing Yadav from this test match, but he was terrific in the first couple. Shami as well, missing him after being hit in the arm. He's a world-class player. Those two guys are out, are a big loss. But to have, Bumrah and then, the new guys coming in have done a terrific job. So it has been a battle of the bowlers and the fast bowlers in particular, which has made for great viewing because wickets are falling and we're getting results in test matches. So that's a real good thing. Both sides very well armed in the fast bowling department.
Yes, and Sachin, talking about India at Sydney, quite a few memories. Last time India were at Sydney, they were able to seal the series. And we remember Sachin Tendulkar's double 100 from 2003 for VVS Lakshman announcing himself to the world with a century in 99. Tendulkar getting 192. Gavaskar also earlier in the 1980s getting a big 100 there. Lots of memories at Sydney for India as well, isn't it? And particularly for you, you've seen quite a few games there.
One of my favorites was Ravi Shastri's double 100, and who's our team director, his double 100. And I think we should have won that test match. We came pretty close where he and Tendulkar put that big partnership together. Geoff, you would have played against them in one of the warm-up games on that tour leading up to that. I think India played New South Wales and New South Wales Country 11 on that tour before they played the Sydney test match. So, I mean, all in all, Sydney, great venue. I've seen England play there also. Ashes, the World Cup semi-final that we lost, but watching New South Wales win Sheffield Shield there, I think these are very special memories of the SCG, being a member there myself, which is a great story with Mr. Lawson. One day at a football match, I asked him, I think it was Newcastle Knights versus Sydney City Roosters, and I'd gone with Geoff and Julie, as was in 2000, and we were having a pie and watching at the Sydney Football Stadium and said, how do I become a member here? And he marched me into the office and made me a member the next day. Since then, it's been my love affair with the SCG.
Very, very true story. Well, we know Sachin likes to join many organisations, whatever country they're in, if they're cricket related, and obviously the SCG. My favourite ground. Also, I was on the board that ran the SCG at the time, so it was pretty easy to get him a membership. But he keeps that up, and I think one of the great regrets of this year is Sachin's not here to enjoy it with us. It's one of the things we look forward to, particularly with India playing. But he comes out every year, and we enjoy his company. And we go off to the cricket, and whether Australia are playing England or the West Indies or Pakistan or India, it doesn't really matter. But this year we're missing him particularly because this will be a great test match with India. He mentioned those great memories. India have got a really good record at the SCG, and a part of that is because the wicket over the years has been a little bit slower and it favours spin a little bit more. And India have thrived in those conditions. This year it might be a bit different, guys, because we've had some very wet weather here. We're in the La Nina weather system, and it's been cooler and very wet. This time last year, we had bushfires, and the skies were full of smoke and cinders, and it was a really horrendous time this year. Matches were almost called up because there was too much smoke in the air. In fact, I think a couple of club games were, and even a Sheffield Shield game, they had to take an afternoon off. It's very different this year. It's very damp, and that will mean the SCG will not necessarily be a dry pitch with a bit of turn. It might be a green seamer. So all those fast bowlers we talked about, it may be a fast bowling contest between both sides once again, and maybe the Indian batsmen won't quite like it as much with a bit of pace and seam moving around. But having said that, they've done pretty well the last few tours. They'll be missing Kohli, of course, but I really have liked the way Rahane took over the captaincy. He was a brilliant captain down in Melbourne.
Talking about the seeming conditions that could be there in Sydney, but what do you have to say about the batting? Actually, Australia itself, the batting lineup, it doesn't seem to be settled. Stephen Smith has not been informed. There is talk of Warner coming back, although there may be a possibility he may not be 100% fit. So, how do you look at the Australian batting shaping up as well?
Well, the series might be 1-1, but Australia have battled to make 200 in 4 innings. Obviously, they won in Adelaide thanks to their fast bowling and that record low score. But yeah, they struggled a lot in Melbourne. I mean, the Melbourne pitch wasn't a batting paradise by any standards. It still gave the bowlers plenty to work with. But Australia haven't risen to those challenges without Warner. And the talk is that Warner will play, may not be 100% fit, but I think Australia will take Warner at 90%. He can field in the gully. He can field it slip. He's a very, very good catcher. He doesn't have to be at his usual mid-off or mid-on where he chases hard, he runs, he throws, he dives, he stops runs. That's one of his roles. But he's also a very good catcher. So I think you will find he will definitely play and he will field in the slips and he won't have to chase or dive. I think they'll try to keep the stress off that recovering groin injury. Obviously, they've already dropped Joe Burns from the side. They still haven't decided who'll replace him. Will it be the young Will Pucovski to make his debut? He should have made his debut in Adelaide, but the concussion problems he has reoccurred after he was hit in that game against India, the Australia A game. The talk is if he passes the final concussion protocols, he'll be in the Test match. Otherwise, I'll have to go looking. They'll go back to Matthew Wade, perhaps to open the batting again. Now, Wade's a tough cricketer. Wade will do anything you want. He'll open the bowling if you want him to, but he's not a specialist opening batsman. As I say, tough competitor, finds a way to get the job done. But really, he spent most of his top-level cricket batting down the order. So he might end up at 5 if Pucovski plays. So the decisions to be answered with both openers. I'd like to see Marcus Harris play. I'm surprised Marcus Harris didn't play the first Test match. He was in good form in the Sheffield Shield. He's played I think 8 or 9 Test matches, and he was a guy in form. So I was very surprised they played Joe Burns early, but they did that. That didn't work out. So the Australian selectors have got a few questions to be answered on many fronts: the injury front, the concussion front, and then the form front, whether they want a specialist like Harris or they're going to go for Wade again. So a very unsettled batting lineup.
And let me bring Sachin into this because he had a very interesting suggestion when we spoke last. And he said, why not get in Moises Henriques in the middle order? And he believes because he's got the experience of playing at the SCG as well. And remember, he's done well against India, although that was almost 8 years ago. So Sachin, your thoughts on that? And let's take it to Geoff as well.
See, my thoughts are very clear. It's for me, he should bat at 6 instead of Travis Head. And he'll bowl a seam up on a seaming wicket. He's also very good at taking the pace off the ball. He's a very canny cricketer. He's been the captain of New South Wales. He's temperamentally a very strong cricketer. 1-1 in the series, tough game. If I'm fighting a battle in the trenches, I'd want Moises Henriques in my 11. But I'm not an Australian selector. But personally, I think he should play. It's outside the box. It might surprise the Indians if he plays. But I'm telling you, he'd score 70, 80 runs over 2 innings, save you 30 runs in the field, and get 3 to 5 wickets across both innings. He's an all-rounder, and he'll get those crucial breakthroughs. And the Indians haven't played much against Moises in a long format of late. And I think that could be a difference. I think it'd be a selection that would surprise a lot of people. But if I was the Australian coach, 1-1, I'd want to bring Moises into it. I won't say it's a punt. I reckon he should play on merit here.
Well, I think that's a very good thought, particularly Moises at home. Of course, Moises has been with the Australian Test squad the whole time. So the selectors must think he's in the mix to play somewhere. So they have a bubble, a quarantine bubble for that squad, which has been quite large. And Moises had been with them since before the first Test match. Well, through the one days, obviously played the T20s for Australia as well. So he must be in the forefront of their thoughts. And he's certainly been bowling well this year. That's one of the things that even he's 32 these days. He's actually bowling has had a bit of a regeneration. He's been fit. He's had a few niggles as well, but this year he's been a little bit fitter, and his bowling's been pretty good for New South Wales in all formats. So it's not the worst call at all. And he's been in terrific form for New South Wales as well. The Sydney Sixers are missing him because he's been the brilliant captain there. He captained them to the title last year. So he's been doing a lot of sitting on the bench at the moment and going to practices, but not playing. And being back at the SCG, you can certainly do worse than have Moises in that side. Senior player, a leader, would add to the captaincy as well. So add to the leadership. It's a pretty good call to have Moises in there on his home deck.
And coming to the Indians, Rohit Sharma coming back, you would think that he would replace Mayank Agarwal. Also, Umesh Yadav is out injured, so one would expect Shardul Thakur to come in place of Umesh Yadav, although there is Navdeep Saini and even Natarajan has been added. Geoff, as much as you've seen of Jasprit Bumrah and Siraj in the second test, who would you think should India pick as the third seamer, and also about Rohit Sharma coming back into the side?
Well, I really like Shardul the way he bowls. He was terrific in the one days and even the 2020s. Good pace, gets the seam, moves it, swings it both ways. He's got all the skills to be a Test cricketer. You mentioned Natarajan as well. I mean, he looks like a terrific bowler and left-handed would be handy. I think it's a great choice they have out of those two to make the replacement. I'm not sure who's been bowling the best out there at their practice sessions, and it might come down to that when you need a replacement. But they both do a pretty good job, I reckon. But you mentioned Rohit Sharma. Do you think they'll bring him back straight away? I mean, he's been in quarantine, hasn't played for a while. It's a big call to bring. He's a quality player, but it's a big call to bring him straight back in. Although he says Agarwal hasn't really been in good nick. He's been suffering at the hands of Cummins, Stark, and Hazelwood as well. So there's a few calls for India to make going to this team as well.
Sachin, your thoughts on that?
Now, I'd play Rohit, whether it's in place of Vihari or in place of Agarwal is something I think about, because if Vihari goes out of the team, Mayank can still open with Rohit, and they have been a successful partnership in the past. And our friend Shubnam can drop in and drop into the middle order. And the Shardul Saini's the quicker of the two, but I'd go with I'd back my Bombay fast bowler in there. I'd want to see as many Bombay players in there, like I'm seeing as many New South Wales players in the Australian squad. I want to see, because it's the mentality of the Bombay cricketers. They are tough, no nonsense, never say die, professional, give it 200%. And I'd love to see Shardul play. I think he'll make a difference here.
Yes, and also remember the fact that Shardul is more than a decent batsman. So, in a sense, India's tail has not wagged for a long time. Maybe that just adds a little bit of teeth to the tail, although that may be secondary. But considering the way the Australian tail has fought on, I think the Indians can take a lesson or two from there. There is also another school of thought which suggests that KL Rahul has been around all the while. Why not get him in the side, get him to open with Shubman Gill, and get Rohit Sharma in the middle order? So instead of rather thrusting him directly as an opener, just keep him in the middle order for this game and then see how it goes. So that is also possibly one of the approaches that is being suggested and talked about.
I was just saying, I mean, KL Rahul has looked terrific during the white ball cricket, and he's a very experienced player. I was also wondering myself, so why he wasn't playing in front of someone like Vihari, because KL Rahul is a very combative cricketer as well. You know, he knows how to adapt to different formats. So he's once again a pretty handy player to have sitting on your bench.
KL Rahul is always an interesting option. But, I mean, for me, Rohit Sharma has to play. Because the experience and the start he can give India. How many people have got 2 or 3 double hundreds in ODI cricket? I know this is red ball. Rohit's coming into his own a little late in his career. I reckon he's India's best batsman, even with Kohli in the team. The Kohli's record is a lot better. I feel technically Rohit Sharma is for me India's #1 batsman.
Well, he better play then, hasn't he? He's at number one. You better get him in the side.
I don't have the power to get him into the side, but I presume I'm sure he'll play.
Yeah. I mean, they brought him out. You know, he's recovering from his injury. He's been in quarantine. He's been training. It's hard to believe you'd make all that effort if you didn't want to put him in the test side as soon as possible. And I think that the medium term thoughts of the Indian selectors have been to get him ready once Kohli went home. I think they saw him as the replacement as soon as possible for Kohli. So one experienced, terrific player for the other. I think that might have been the long-term plan in any case.
Yes, and that's what makes sense for India. And gentlemen, to wrap things up, I will again put you on the spot. Last time, before the second test, we were all thinking about Australia being the favorites and India finding it really difficult to bounce back after that crushing defeat at Adelaide. But now that they have, and it's completely changed the complexion of the matter. So, Geoff, I'll start with you first. Who are the favorites heading into the third test?
Well, I think India are the favourites. What Australia need is Smith and Labuschagne to come good. I mean, that's what they've missed out in the run-making department. Their two best players have hardly made a run in the two test matches so far. Yes, it's been a low-scoring series, but we're talking about the best two, and Smith, was ranked number one in the world. Much more is expected to him than 4 single-figure scores. So given that, Australia should be far more competitive. But I think India coming off a terrific win. Let's face it, they got bowled out for 36 in Adelaide. To come back and win by 8 wickets in Melbourne is a great turnaround, and especially given that Kohli's not there. So really a huge feather in the cap for Rahane, and that momentum has got to carry into Sydney. The only problem I see is, once again, is the weather, gentlemen. It has been over. I haven't seen the sun here for a week in Sydney, and that's so rare at this time of year. It's still overcast and raining today. They're forecasting more rain for the next 3 or 4 days. It's really un-Australian weather at this time of year. And that's what's going to make the pitch, I think, the biggest factor. And it's going to be who bowls the seamers bowl well. India batted better in Melbourne against the Australian bowlers. So that's why I reckon they're going to be favourites.
Geoff picks India. Sachin, your call?
I think it'll be the first test match that will make it into 5 days, because you've got some heavy hitting batsmen coming into both teams. So Rohit Sharma comes into India. David Warner comes in to the Australian team. So, I mean, and Pujara is not fired yet. Smith and Manas haven't fired yet. So I reckon you could have a test match going into 5 days. Yes, the momentum's with India, but with Henriques and Warner coming in, there'll be 7 or 8 New South Welshmen in that team playing on their home ground. I'd say it'll be a damn good game of cricket. I think 50-48 in favour of Australia.
Okay, 50-48 in favour of Australia. That's sort of a very, very well put equation, because generally people pick 51-49. 50-48 seems to be more specific.
Must be 2% a draw, is it?
Who knows?
Sachin, if it goes 5 days and India are bowling on the last day, they'll have 2 spinners as well. Australia haven't worked out Ashwin yet. Jadeja's terrific. And if it goes to the 5th day, we're going to have a dryish wicket, you would think, by then, and it's going to turn, and then India will become the favourites.
Yeah, it'll be the Holland-Bennett situation from 1985. Henry, you would have played that test match, right? The last
I did play that test match, and Murray Bennett bowled the best arm ball I've ever seen to knock Viv Richards' middle stump out.
Yeah, I remember that ball. He was bowling with those dark sunglasses of his, the specs with the shaded specs he used to wear. Max Bennett. Yes. I still remember the ball coming in.
I was standing at mid-off when he bowled that, and when the ball was halfway down the pitch, I could just see it start to dip in, and Viv was playing back, and from that time he was doomed. And the middle stump, well, it didn't cartwheel out of the ground, but it certainly fell out of the ground. It was one of the greatest deliveries I've ever seen from a spinner, particularly on on a dusty pitch that turned to get it to swerve that much in the air. It was old-fashioned arm ball. You don't see too many these days.
H, what's happening with the uni breakfast before the test match? Is it on this year?
There's not many breakfasts. There's no social gatherings, Satchmo, unfortunately. I don't know if there'll be too much corporate hospitality at the test match. New South Wales government have just laid down some new rules this afternoon in the last hour or so about gatherings and wearing masks. You've got to wear your mask in all public transport, in indoor settings, in shopping centres. So I know we've only had a small outbreak here, but they're not taking any chances. So the opportunity to have functions, particularly before the cricket, really gone out the window, unfortunately, but that's the way of the world. We're very lucky we'll have a test match at all.
Yes, we indeed are. That test matches are going on, and it's come as such a big relief in these times. But gentlemen, fantastic discussion. I've really enjoyed the banter. I've really enjoyed all these memories that you two have recollected, especially to close it with Murray Bennett's ball to Viv Richards. And Viv Richards is someone I've been in awe of, although I've not had the privilege of watching him bat live because I was born much later. But thank you, gentlemen. Enjoyed this discussion and a great start to the new year. Thank you so much.
All the best, guys. Thanks, Henry.
Shukriya.
Bye.
Shukriya, fir milenge.
And Zabardast.
Bye.